Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. I'm Karen from Simply Living for Him, here to do my daily encouragement video from God's Word. And I hope that these videos bless you in some way. If you stumble across it, I just pray that God would use it in some way to speak to you today, wherever you are. Today I wanted to look at a verse in Acts. It's actually one of the very first verses that I kind of chose back when I began my ministry over a decade ago. And I love this verse for so many reasons, and I think it's so applicable to today. So it's in Acts 17. This is Paul, and he's speaking at the Sermon on Mars Hill. And he's actually speaking to Greeks, to men of Athens. These were not believers. They were not Christians. They kind of lived in a society where they worshiped many gods. Thinking and knowledge and education was very important to these men. And so here is Paul, and he begins speaking to these men, and he presents the gospel, and he speaks to them where they're at. He says to them, let me just grab my glasses. He says to them here in chapter 17, let's start in verse 22. He says, "So Paul stood in the midst of Areopagus and said, 'Men of Athens, I observe that you are very religious in all respects.'" And so when he's saying that they're religious, he's not talking about at all being a Christian. As we know, Christianity is not necessarily being religious, right? It's a relationship with the Lord. So these men were religious in the fact that they worshiped many gods. He says, "For while I was passing through and examining the objects of your worship, I found an altar with this inscription, 'To an unknown God.' Therefore, what you worship in ignorance, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and all things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all people life and breath and all things. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation, that they would seek God, if perhaps they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us." And here's the verse that I chose way back in many years ago for my basing my ministry. "For in him we live and move and exist." And so right there, that says it all. It is in him that we live, we move, we exist. So let's look at this a little bit. And I think this is so relevant to our culture, because Paul could walk through our culture right now and say the same message. You know, he's looking around and he's saying, you call yourself religious. You say you worship these gods, but this is an unknown God you're worshiping. You're worshiping created things and not a creator. He's probably just walked through Athens and been like appalled at the statues and the idols and the different, idolatry that was going on at this time. And he's probably feeling like, what are they doing? They're worshiping all of these things that are very far away and unknown, and yet the living God is right here in all of us. It is in him that we live, we move, and we exist. He right here talks about the sovereignty of God. He says that he has made each person to seek God, and he says, at their appointed times and the boundaries. God has chosen what year you would be born in. He has chosen where you would live. He has chosen literally every second of your life before time began. He has determined every second that you would encounter different people, have different experiences, live in different places. He has appointed all of that for a purpose. And that purpose is so that you would come to know him. Everyone is born within them that desire, desire to know who God is. Many of us will go through life never knowing the one true God, and many of us will. And for those who do, we need to share that with everyone, right? everyone will seek after him. I love the term here that he uses where he says that they would seek God if perhaps they might grope for him and find him. The word here in the original text is like this, for this groping is like grasping, like in the dark, you know, like searching and finding. And I know what that's like because I once lived in the dark and I was always kind of groping and searching and trying to find, you know, the meaning of life or what, you know, who God was. And, you know, God created us to sort of seek him out like that in the dark, but then to be brought into the light and to know that it is by him that we live. It is by him that right now you are seeing this video. It is by him that right now you are breathing a breath. It is by him that you move and you exist. You were created for him and by him, and you have a purpose for him. And you are created at the beginning of time. God knew that you would have been born in whatever year it was in, you know, the 20th century, the 21st century. You would live in certain places. Your life would look a certain way, all because he wants to know you. And so, like I said, Paul could come to our culture today and he could look around and he could give this very same sermon. He could look around and say, what are you doing? You're worshiping the wrong things. You're worshiping money. You're worshiping status. You're worshiping career. You're worshiping technology. You're worshiping health. You're worshiping the internet, you know, you're worshiping education, you're worshiping all these things. But do you know that you live and move and exist for the one true God? And so, you know, our society is not far away from the way Athens was. We may look back and say, well, we have a Christian society. We don't worship idols. We absolutely do. We can claim we're a Christian, but if we're not worshiping the one true God above all and everything, we're just worshiping other idols. Like I said, whether it be the technology, career, you know, status, achievement, we worship other people. There's so many things that we don't even realize that are idolatry that we are worshiping. And so in our culture today, which is straying as far away as, you know, from Christianity as ever before, we are slowly moving down this path, not slowly, quickly moving down this path away from the one true God. And we as Christians have the ability to share with others, like, hey, this is not who we should be worshiping. You know, if you come across people that you know are like groping in the dark and they're seeking out something, but they don't know what, share Jesus with them, share the gospel with them. Or if that's you, if you're groping around and searching every day and saying, I don't understand what this life is about. I was there at one time. I used to drive around in my car. I can remember back before I knew Jesus, driving around in my car, literally crying out loud in my car, driving aimlessly about. I wasn't even going anywhere. I would just drive. And I remember crying out loud saying, what is this life all about? I don't get it. But now that I have Jesus in my life, now that I read God's word, now that I know the one true God, I know what this life is about. And as it says here in verse 28, for in him we live and move and exist. In him every single day I live and move and exist. And now, rather than living and moving and existing for myself, I live and I move and I exist for him. So ask yourself that question today. Who are you living for? Who are you existing for? Who are you, doing anything during the day for? Is it for him? Is it for yourself? Do you not even know? If you don't know the one true God, please reach out to me. I will send you a Bible for free. And if you do know, now is the time to share that truth with others. There's a lot of people out there worshiping the wrong gods and groping in the dark. They know that there is something that they are created for, but they just don't understand it yet. And if we have that truth to share, we better get out there and share it, because the world is getting darker every day. The world is looking more like this every day, It says here that the people in Athens, they worshiped in ignorance. Our society right now is worshiping in ignorance. We're worshiping many other things besides the one true God. So I hope that this encouraged you today. Turn to Acts today. Read this chapter. I would encourage you to read as much as you can, but look at this chapter. Focus on this chapter today in chapter 17. And then starting in verse 22 is the sermon on Mars Hill, and that goes down to verse 34. I would encourage you, get in the Word today. Ask the Lord, what He wants you to know today. And then how can you take that out to a world who needs to know the one true God? So if this encouraged you, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you're seeing this video. I've been posting them on YouTube, on my website, on Instagram, and also share it. Share it with others, because you never know who needs to hear this message. So I hope this encouraged you, and until the next time, I wish you all the blessings and joy in Jesus today.